Welcome to Vision Pros, the show all about spatial computing, visionOS, and getting work done on the Apple Vision Pro. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
That's definitely something that I'm thinking about and am sort of starting to play around with is Plex Support. It's probably my other most used. It's not really a streaming service particularly. The initial rejection with like Netflix was kind of like a blessing in disguise because it meant that I was able to like then make it a more generic thing that works with any website now. So it's sort of just like all in one. It kind of worked out.
Welcome to another episode of Vision Pros. In this episode, we are joined by Privitelli, the developer of SuperCut, which lets you watch Netflix and other video services in an awesome native visionOS app. As a reminder, you can support this podcast over visionpros.fm/Patreon. By subscribing to either Apple Podcasts or the Patreon, you get early access to both Vision Pros and iPad Pros. My great thanks to everyone that supports the show. Every dollar goes a long way and is greatly appreciated. Another thing I'd really appreciate is if you could open the Apple Podcast app and spend just a few minutes to write a quick review of the show. As a fairly new show, these reviews are super helpful and very much appreciated. So if you could, just open up Apple Podcasts and write a quick review. With that, here's my discussion with Christian. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Christian.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time today, and we're going to dive into your app SuperCut and just visionOS in general here.
Cool. Can't wait.
Yeah, so can you first kind of give a little bit of a background on yourself? And I'm curious if you've had any experience with headsets prior to Apple Vision Pro. Like, is this your first kind of headset you've worked with?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm a 19-year-old apps developer from Australia. I've been building apps for a pretty long time now.
Which I love to hear, 19 and also a long time. Like, that blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, not like a long time. I probably started like I think the first time I like wrote a line of code was when I was like 10 and tried to make like a Minecraft mod or something.
Yeah.
And it sort of just like went on from there. Like I had like this really old like i3 iMac, and just taught myself stuff with YouTube videos and whatever. And yeah, and then I think that the turning point for me was like with the release of SwiftUI, and I was really able to like, I don't know, I feel like that made like building apps so much more accessible to me specifically, and that was like my turning point. I was like, you know, this is something that I actually like want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I have 2 apps on the App Store. That's about all. Oh, and in terms of have I played around with other headsets, I had an original Quest and a Quest 2.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in like the AR VR space. The 2 Swift Student Challenge like submissions that I made were sort of like inspired by like a world where we would have like AR glasses or something like that. And I've sort of always been like fascinated with that sort of idea. Yeah.
Very cool. And so SuperCut's one of the 2 apps. What's the other one?
It's Quanta. It's sort of an app to bridge the gap between like analog in terms of like listening with vinyl and digital. So originally when I first got like a record player and wanted to start collecting records, I didn't have a proper like speaker setup. So I built an app to be able to AirPlay. So you can basically connect your record player to your phone and you can AirPlay the output to like a set of HomePods or something.
I love that. That's
and it sort
so
of
cool.
turned into like a more like general purpose sort of app where like it now shows like live time syncs lyrics to the vinyl that you're playing and uses like Shazam Kit to be able to get the current song and artwork, and just a small little tool. Yeah.
That's very neat. Yeah. And yeah, vinyl, it's so weird how big of a resurgence that had, and still has, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something about like actually buying a favorite album and like, I don't know, putting it down to play is like something special about it. I don't know what it is. Just, yeah.
Well, it's the thing too that you're kind of like there to listen to the album. It's not like you're gonna like throw on an album after the song's done and try to find a track midway through, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
So you've had experience with Quest, and I'm imagining like me, mainly for gaming prior to Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah, I mean, I've played a few games on Quest. After having it for a while, it's like I don't use it that often anymore. I sold my original Quest. I just have the Quest 2 now.
hmm
Um, and probably after having it for a few months, I honestly just ended up playing like Beat Saber and like SuperCut. They're like my like not sorry, not
Yeah.
Supercut, Super Hot.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah, they're definitely my like two most played games, especially Beat Saber. Like it's basically just like a Beat Saber VR headset at this point.
Right. Which for a
Yeah,
lot of people it becomes that. Which
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just fine. I mean, but yeah, it's not awesome either. I guess. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah. So you're based out of Australia, and
Yep.
so we heard, of course, that this would be a United States launch. How quickly were you scheming to try to find a way to get to the States to pick one up locally versus going through the task of importing one and making sure you have the light seal and all that stuff?
Yeah, I wasn't actually planning to buy one. And I was like one of the many people that like saw the price and I was kind of like, yeah, there is absolutely no way. Like that is way too expensive for what it is. But then the more that like I thought about it and sort of considered it, I was like, maybe it's not terrible. I mean, it's very expensive, but um, and then it just happened to be that I was on a trip to the US for work and on the same time that it was released. And then I was like, it's lining up too perfectly for me to like not go and pre-order one. So um, yeah, I pre-ordered it and I was lucky enough to get the like 9 a.m. time slot like Union Square. Yeah. And I did the whole like cheering thing when when they opened the doors, which was like kind of crazy. Um, yeah, but I wasn't planning to buy one. It was sort of just like a thing that it was like it lined up perfectly, and it was a first generation Apple product, and I'm like, I can't skip that opportunity, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, June 5th. I think I was also on campus like, no chance that's
yeah,
happening with that price point. Then like time goes by. It's like, well, maybe if I do that, yeah. So
yeah.
I
I
think it
still
was.
remember the videos like at WWDC like live when they announced the price, and everyone like gasped.
I think it was very smart for them to announce the price at WWDC to have that sink in, that time to prepare and all
Definitely.
that. Yeah, that was, I
Yeah,
think, very important for for that launch
yeah,
to for those that would eventually want one to be able to figure
yeah.
that out.
Oh, and also I did get a chance to try one in a developer lab. Um, so that sort of swayed my decision a little bit because I was actually able to see what it was capable of, not to its full
hmm
extent, just because like it was quite limited in the lab. But I was able to try it before the release, so that sort of definitely gave me an idea of like what I was looking for. Yeah.
For the developer lab, you had to, I believe, have some kind of app to run to be able to get into it. Did you run your other app to see what that would be like in there?
Yeah, so I ran my other app and we also I went with work with my other coworkers. I work on Hyper Online, um, and yeah, we tested that app there.
Okay, gotcha. Very cool. Yeah, I was going to ask. So, yeah, you do development for your day job as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, what configuration did you end up going with? Did you just get the base model, or did you do any of the storage upgrades? Or
Yeah, just the 256 gig, but I'm very glad that I went to pick it up in store because the face scan that I did before was like completely wrong and I had to change it. So definitely if you're considering a Vision Pro, definitely go and pick it up in store. That's what I'd say to anyone. Yeah.
yeah, the eBay market's very interesting because like you're stuck with every face seal that's with that, and that
Yeah.
yeah.
I've seen some people on like Facebook Marketplace in Australia selling the Vision Pro because it's obviously not available here for like $7,000+, and I'm like, that's like actually crazy. But I mean, I was actually thinking like if I do get it and it's terrible and I never use it, like I mean, I can always sell it for as much as I bought it, like, or even if it's
And
open
more,
box,
probably,
like because
yes.
yeah, because it's not available here, like people will probably pay for it. But
Yeah.
that was like another thing that sort of like convinced me that I was like, I'm not necessarily losing the money. Yeah.
Right. So on February 2nd, we start using visionOS full time, and more than just a developer lab. Did the expectations meet reality when it finally got home with you and you were able to spend some serious time with it?
It was definitely because I mean I tried it in the lab and I was sort of able to get an idea of what was capable in terms of like the actual hardware and the screens and stuff, and I realized that they were incredible. But a lot of the software was the first time experiencing it when I got it on the release day. Um, and I would say that it did. There was a lot of things that I was like, this is incredible, and there was a lot of things that I definitely thought could be improved.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I still think that. I mean, not that much has changed since the release. But yeah, it was. I would say it lived up to my expectations. Yeah,
Have you put on your Quest 2 since getting your Apple Vision Pro?
I have, and I'm not gonna lie. I don't think that I don't think I want to use it that much anymore, unless it is to like play Beat Saber, because it made me realize like the pass through on that, it's like basically unusable. Like it's just like it's basically a safety feature. Like yeah,
It is amazing how the screens in these headsets make your expectations just the
yeah,
floor just changes. Like I
100%.
yeah, because I have a
Yeah,
PSVR 2, which is very nice screens. It's 2K per
yeah,
eye, and even that looks like trash almost.
yeah,
Like once you're in
yeah,
the game, you start to forget it, but once you're looking at the UI and trying to read text and stuff, it's like, oh my gosh.
yeah. I think the one thing that the Vision Pro has like above pretty much every other headset is definitely the hardware. The screens, the build quality, um, it just I don't know. The hardware is like really nice on it. It's like a step above pretty much everything else that I've tried at least. Yeah.
Yeah, in the consumer world, there's nothing that compares. Yeah, and it was funny because I also played a PS4 One recently because there were some games that were exclusive there, and oh boy, that was just the screen quality is just so so
Yeah.
poor compared to what we're at now.
Yeah.
But
Actually, something interesting is like the Quest 2 is a higher resolution than the Quest 1, but I think I actually prefer the Quest 1 screen because it's OLED. Um,
oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, that was just something interesting. Sorry, it's like kind of off topic, but
No, yeah,
yeah.
and it's with PSVR One, they're truly terrible screens, but some games they'll make you forget. Once you're in a video game,
Yeah,
some games if they're designed properly,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just funny the different experiences with light leak and all that. 'Cause PSVR One had a lot more you could see down below, and
Yeah,
yeah, just different experiences across.
definitely. Yeah.
So, how important was it for you to have the actual device to build apps against? Like, did the simulator compare at all to the real hardware? Like, could SuperCut have launched without you using it?
Yeah. The I'd say that the simulator's like it's very useful. It's a great tool. And it's probably like 80% of the way there. You can probably you can build a lot of apps on it, but there's still things missing that it's nice to have the device. WebKit in particular, there's just sort of a lot of things missing on the web that aren't available on the simulator. Like I basically couldn't like play videos in Netflix on the simulator because it's missing like the DRM needed in the simulator. Yeah, I I think that for about 80% of the time it's like very usable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's nice to have the device. And for Supercut, it was necessary because of those like requirements with like DRM, and just like certain like WebKit features that weren't available on the simulator.
Yeah. And when you are developing, you're doing the thing where Xcode's in the headset in one window and your app's running in another, and you can deploy it right, in real
Yeah,
time like
most
that.
of the time. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Actually, I've found I don't know why, but sometimes I like forget that I can mirror my MacBook screen, and then I end up just like coding in the pass through, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I like actually go to like mirror it, and I'm like, this is so much better. Yeah. I mean, it kind of says like the pass through, it isn't incredible. I'd say it looks like just looking through like an iPhone pass through or something, like just a camera, but it is usable. Like
It
it's
is, yeah.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if you're, yeah, on the MacBook, I'm not sure if you're just using the built-in monitor or are you hooked up to an external display most of the time.
I have a like 5K, I like had a 5K iMac and sort of pulled out the insides and turned it into like an external display. And I thought that I would use it a lot more than I actually do. I I don't know, I think there's something nice about like being able to just like take your laptop anywhere and not be constrained to a desk or anything. I'd say it's about maybe 20% of the time I actually use a monitor, and yeah, not super often, not as
Gotcha.
much as I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the pass-through works a lot better on the bigger external monitor versus the,
Yeah,
like, yeah.
that makes sense.
So, outside of developing and working on your app, what role does the Apple Vision Pro have in your day-to-day life? Like, how are you finding yourself using it these days?
I definitely use it less than when I got it. I still use it for sometimes mirroring my Mac display. I'd say the biggest use at this point is probably just entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
just watching movies, TV shows, and developing like random experiments, apps, and working on SuperCut now. Um, yeah, that's like mainly it. I'm I guess like we're still waiting for more software improvements,
Yeah.
and more new apps. I think that it's still very early, and I definitely don't think that like a lot of people are saying that the Vision Pro is sort of like fallen off or whatever. Like, yeah, it's definitely lost some of the hype, but like I think that it's still very early, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. We're still waiting to see what's going to come with it. Yeah,
Yeah, I think WatchOS 2, which launched like 2 months, or was announced like 2 or 3 months after WatchOS 1 came out. So
yeah,
the Watch launched in April, I think, and then the WWDC, kind of similar to Vision, and that's where they fixed the App Store for the watch.
yeah. It's kind of funny. Like one thing that I saw, like, why does every like first version of Apple's software have that like contacts view? Like,
Oh,
you know how
right.
like
Yeah.
like WatchOS 1 had that where it was like the digital touch like circle, yeah. And then like visionOS now has that like contacts shortcut that I feel like no one ever uses. I don't know if you do, but like does anyone actually ever use that?
That is thing.
Yeah.
That thing's just, it's very interesting because there's no contacts app. There's no way to add a new contact to visionOS, but you have this little friends thing. And the only
Yeah.
reason I ever use that is to create a FaceTime link. So if I'm like setting up an interview, I will actually hop in there, create a link, and that's kind of
Yeah.
useful. But it is so weird that that's like one of the three things. You have environments, apps, and people,
Yeah.
and you can't put favorites there. It's just kind of like this, recents list kind of thing.
Yeah. And not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't make like personas are great, but I probably wouldn't make the choice to actually FaceTime someone on a Vision Pro. I mean, when I FaceTimed like my friends and family the first time with the persona, pretty much all of them like actually like got frightened by how it looked. It was pretty funny seeing everyone's reactions. So
Yeah,
yeah,
personas are great for Vision Pro to Vision Pro, where you're both like, especially spatial personas. That's a really cool experience.
I have not tested spatial personas yet, but
Yeah, because
yeah, I've seen they look very cool.
like I don't know about you, but my friends don't have Vision Pros. Like I've done it, but with like
Yeah.
you know, um, developers and people like that. Yeah,
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So I imagine in Australia, like, you probably don't know when anyone
Yeah, no,
has it.
I don't know anyone really that I could FaceTime. Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks very cool though.
But yeah, if I pick up the phone call and it's just a regular person on an iPhone, I'm quickly switching to the external camera to just show them my surroundings, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah,
awkward because it also pulls in every window you're looking at. So what I want Apple to add an option to in visionOS 2 is do a FaceTime call. Let me show my external camera to show my daughter or whatever, which they're probably calling in the first place, and let me see their video screen without them seeing it as well, because that's just weird.
interesting.
Because
Yeah,
because if
an
you're
interesting concept. Yeah,
right, because you can't use your external camera to just show them your camera. You also have to show them all your windows, which includes a picture back of them, which they probably are already seeing in their iPhone, mirroring thing that happens, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
just a yeah, interesting thing I discovered. Like, yeah, that's got to be a
I
terrible
think
thing.
solving the like sort of social experiences with Vision Pro, especially once it's not Vision Pro anymore, it's just like a cheaper headset, and a lot more people have them. I think solving those sort of social experiences is going to unlock a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And the whole like app story of there's not being a ton of apps, like the saving grace, of course, is the TV app is just stunning, and there are new 3D movies hitting. I'd say monthly still at this point. There are still new releases coming out, like Kung Fu Panda 3 or 4. It's in 3D. Just came out. It's a great way to watch. Best way to
Yeah,
watch that movie. So for now, the entertainment story is still great. There's movies are incredible, and it'd be nice if Apple had more immersive stuff, but just regular movies,
yeah,
best way to experience those. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. That's probably my main use, like entertainment, and I definitely think it's the best thing about the headset at the moment. Yeah, and I feel like that's sort of like my hot take with Vision Pro, that I feel like it's called Vision Pro, and probably the only thing that's really pro about it though, like, is the price. I actually feel like it's like a really good headset for just like regular consumers, like looking to watch movies like in a cinema environment or on a really big screen or something. Yeah, I think that the software is still probably holding it back from what I would consider to call it a pro product, if you know what I mean.
I do, to an extent, yeah. Because like the window management, it's great that I can have 1,000 windows, but it'd be nice if I could group stuff together or that kind of stuff, which would be kind
Yeah,
of a pro end thing. Um, I do love working it though. Like, so when I can
yeah,
when yeah, for me the apps are there. Some of them I had to sideload with Signalis. So some iPad apps that were not enabled, I was able to get in there with Signalis as a way to force them in there. And when the apps
yeah,
you need are there, it's great working in that environment. It is nice surrounding yourself in Windows. Like, that's a really cool experience, and be able to just glance up at stuff. If I'm exporting a video in LumaFusion, it's nice to be able to just throw it beyond my field of view. It's still exporting the background without me needing to babysit like
yeah,
I do an iPad. Like, there's very nice things in the headset, but
yeah. Maybe I just haven't explored enough.
it also
But
depends what you do for work. Like coding, you can throw your Mac display in there, but is that better than using your 5K display with an external, versus that?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing for me, I guess. I mean, I mirror my Mac display, and then sometimes I'll have like Slack or Linear open in another Safari window, um, and that's great. Um, but that's interesting that you mentioned like using like doing video editing and stuff. I don't know how that would like feel. Like, that's interesting.
So with LumaFusion, it's mainly just a quick thumbnail video where I just throw the audio for this podcast in with a just thumbnail. But the
Yeah,
podcast editing, I do it in the headset. And the eye tracking for podcast editing, surprisingly good with an app, just an iPad app that has good trackpad
Wow.
support. Because it's recognize
Okay.
because I'll do the strip silence and it'll recognize all the little. So I've got all these little audio clips or whatever, and I can very easily trim beginning or end, move stuff around, look at something, tap, and then tap for delete, and like
Yeah.
it works. Like for precision podcast editing, it's surprisingly good with just eye tracking, and then I'll add a
Yeah.
keyboard and
Interesting.
trackpad into it, and it's even better. It's all so. It's surprisingly good for that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe I underestimated its capability to some extent, but I mean, for me, it's still probably like I don't use it. I'd say I use it maybe like 20% of the time for work, and the rest of the time is probably just like entertainment media.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it is nice. The AirDrop is surprisingly great in the headset. Like if you're wearing the headset and you have your phone or iPad in front of you, you can just hit the AirDrop and your Apple Vision Pro will show up, and AirDrop will, the file will be airdropped, and the little icon will stick up there, and it's a very nice experience. If you need to transfer media files in the headset that way, for instance, podcasts or what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the Apple ecosystem. Everything sort of quote unquote just works.
Are you an Apple Watch user?
Yeah, I am.
Though the discovery I had the other day was just mind blowing to me. If you try to type on your Apple Watch while wearing the headset, you'll get a little Apple Watch notification on the headset, and you can type.
Really?
You can type on your Apple Watch from your headset, which is kind of a weird thing.
I wonder what would be quicker.
I'm not sure which keyboard's worse, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not hooked up to a Bluetooth keyboard, obviously, it's like, yeah, I'm not sure which is faster, though.
It's kind of cool though still. Yeah.
Yeah, that interconnectivity was just like, oh, it's another little thing they did.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine, as far as like the Apple Vision Pro being great entertainment, that is one of the main things I do, because like sometimes at night, I only have one arm free, and it's kind of hard to work with what you can doing some like typing and with dictation. But being in Australia, you don't have the luxury, I'd imagine, of buying a bunch of 3D movies and the whole Apple TV app. Streaming, I'd imagine, is a much bigger importance for you. Is that right?
Yeah. 3D movies, they work in Disney Plus. It's kind of interesting. They removed the like 3D section in Disney Plus when you're like not in the US, but they actually still play if you go to play a movie that is in 3D. It still plays in 3D, which is something I just found interesting. And I am able to buy movies with like a gift card. It's just subscriptions like with Apple Arcade that don't work with the gift cards,
You need a credit card,
which is kind of annoying.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been fine. I kind of just made a like US Apple ID, and I'm able to access like most things other than just like Apple Arcade.
Okay. And the Apple immersive content, is that just available, or do you need Apple TV Plus to watch that stuff?
I think it's just available.
Okay.
I might be wrong though.
Because you don't have Apple TV Plus through an American account.
I'm not. I'm not able to on my account without like a US credit card.
Mm-hmm.
But the immersive content sort of just works, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And is Apple TV Plus enabled on your account just from your local Apple ID?
If I try to go onto the TV app with my just like local Apple ID, it just locks out every tab except for my library.
Okay.
So I'm
wow.
access it if I did have Apple TV Plus.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you can't even access like Apple TV Plus from all your Australia stuff. Okay.
Yeah. The good thing is though, you can sign into a different Apple ID just for media and purchases. So I can still have my main iCloud account, sorry, with like photos, AirDrop, like Mac screen mirroring and everything. But then have like a different US account for App Store, Apple TV, Apple Music and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I do this too because when I started with Apple stuff, I was a Windows user, so I had a Gmail account that I used for iTunes. And then I got an Apple account, and they didn't let me merge those at the time. So now all my media purchases are on that account, and then my Apple ID is a different account.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it is kind of annoying that because Apple Music works fine with my local account. So whenever I want to use Apple Music, I have to sign out of my US one and then sign into my local one because I can't subscribe to it on the US account. So it's kind of annoying, but I'm sure
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
Super
It's
annoying, yeah.
officially like released in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully this summer, because like English speaking, so you got that,
Yeah.
as a benefit. 'Cause they haven't localized visionOS in any other language, so I'd imagine English speaking countries will be high on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully by the end of this year.
So, what headband do you find yourself rocking, and have you done any of the modifications we're starting to see online?
I'm a solo loop user all day. I don't actually really like the dual loop personally. I don't know what it is. I feel like it's just like more friction when you're putting on the headset. It's kind of annoying to put on and like get adjusted right.
Yeah.
And it sort of like it just doesn't really fit my head properly. The solo loop is just like
The dual loop for me is like it does the wrong angle and it's just not comfortable.
yeah, exactly. I think it's kind of weird that they had the like part that goes over your head go horizontally instead of like vertically, like most other headsets I've tried. Um, but yeah, it doesn't really, yeah, as you said, it doesn't really angle on my face properly. And I actually don't find the solo loop super uncomfy, and I sort of get used to the weight like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, the light seal is very important, which one you have for if that's going to work or not.
Yeah. And as I said, I'm glad that I got the right one. And yeah, I feel like the comfort issues are way overplayed, in my opinion. It's probably like hot take, but more comfy than my Quest 2. Like I feel like I have the like alternate band that's like the hard plastic for my Quest 2, and it's definitely more comfy than the original one, but it gives me a headache after a while in a way that the Vision Pro doesn't, which is kind of weird. Yeah, something interesting I found.
It'd be cool to have a hard plastic band as an option, but I understand not wanting that because laying down and like trying to enjoy media with that means you
Yeah,
can't really lay down because it's a hard plastic kind of
exactly.
thick band. Yeah.
And I mean, if you're laying down and watching a movie or something, the like band doesn't really matter at that point.
No,
Like,
not especially. No.
yeah, yeah,
And I really do like to be able to just like I can put on my headset with one hand using the solo knit band. I don't need two hands to like try to do that.
yeah,
Which is nice.
exactly. Yeah, it's just a lot more convenient in general, I'd say.
Yeah, I added the solo top mod as well, so I've got two solo loops I'm rocking.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've seen that, but like I didn't think that it was like something that people would actually use. Like, is it actually more comfy?
It is more comfortable for me.
Okay.
Prior to that, I did have this black Velcro band that would cover the speakers, which I didn't love. So I really had to use AirPods for movies and stuff because the speakers, it would just like distort it if it got
Yeah.
loud. But the solo top is great. Both the dials are like right next to each other as you're adjusting, which is nice. And the small
Yeah.
solo knit is very adorable, I must say. Like it's substantially smaller than the medium, which I have.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, there was also that like combo band that was in the original like trailers that had like half dual loop, half
Yeah.
solo loop or
It is
solo knit or
baffling to
whatever.
me that Apple didn't do something like this to have the solo loop knit is obviously what they want people using it. It's like the designed Apple-y thing.
Yeah. It's almost like they made the dual loop worse on purpose
Yes.
just because like they wanted people to use the solo one. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks better. It's easier to adjust and all that stuff. Some people tell me that they never adjust the dual loop and they just like throw it on and take it off every time. But I can't imagine ever doing that. That seems wild to me. It seems like it'd be too loose
Yeah.
or whatnot.
Definitely. My biggest complaint with it was it's just like tedious, kind of.
Yeah. And I would get hair stuck in that all the time. The Velcro.
Yeah.
It's just like it just turns in. Yeah, it's ripping out hair.
Yeah.
It has hair there. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do find it more comfortable having the top part, the top headband as well. Can put some weight there. Doesn't have to be quite as tight on the back, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So before we dive into SuperCut, what are some of the apps you find yourself using? You've mentioned mainly entertainment. Are there any apps outside of that as well?
Well, outside of entertainment, not particularly. None that like stick out to me that I would say are like must-haves. Yeah, I'm not. I probably I don't have any like specific apps like outside of entertainment that I'm like. I feel like I had something like before, and now I'm like forgetting. Yeah, there are some great apps, but there's some cool demos. Like Jigspace, Sky Guide. They're they're really cool. I love them, but there's not really any apps that I'm like have changed my workflow or how I do things in the day to day or anything. Most of the things are just entertainment, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, and being able to just access Safari and messages, and if you do need to reply, it's
exactly.
there.
Yeah,
And
just the
yeah,
built-in stuff. Yeah,
yeah, I do like kind of the messages UI, how it expands horizontally, like in interesting ways.
yeah,
And yeah, Moon Player continues to impress me. That's the app that lets you play 3D side by side videos, and it also I found it to be the best native visionOS app at just playing any video file you throw at it. Like if you're using like an MKV that isn't too happy with Apple's native encoding or decoding,
yeah.
it'll work. So it's pretty nice for that stuff.
Yeah, Moonplay is great. I also have that, but I'm really hoping that Infuse will update their app for Vision Pro natively because there is an alpha, and I've tested it, but it's basically just the iPad app like directly converted to Vision Pro.
Yeah.
It's a great like client for like Plex and media files. Something that I'm hoping for.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like about Moon Player is there's no environment, and you're kind of in a black room if you are you watching 3D content. And we'll talk about later the whole environment in
Yeah,
theaters and
we'll get into that. Yeah, yeah,
the complexities in building those out. So this, yeah. So Netflix not being on Vision Pro, just like YouTube, they said we're not going to do this. We're not even putting our iPad app there. And I even tried to sideload Netflix. I have the app or had the app installed, but it would crash if I hit play on anything. So they have some kind of like check if it's the right hardware, and they'll crash the app if it's not.
interesting.
So yeah, and for the longest time I had this little my download. The settings app, it listed Netflix as like taking up storage because I downloaded part of a movie before it crashed, and just kind of funny. So how big of a bummer was it that this app wasn't coming to Vision Pro initially before you thought, hey, let me build an app for it?
Yeah, I mean, it was disappointing because I do want to see, not even just because like, I mean, I use Netflix occasionally, but like I want the Vision Pro, like I want the Vision Pro to succeed. It's like it's a cool thing, and not having things like YouTube and Netflix, it's the kind of thing that's like, why? Like, it's not going to take you that long to like build a native app. Like Disney did it, and did a pretty decent job, I'd say. Yeah, so it was just like kind of, it just feels like a missed opportunity on their part. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a wild thing. The original Apple TV in 2010, it had YouTube built in with Apple's own kind of interface, and Netflix built in with Apple's own interface, and they definitely work together on that. And now it's just like we're not even going to put our iPad app on.
Yeah, their relationship's definitely like downhill since then.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So, how soon after Netflix announcement did you decide to start working on SuperCut?
It wasn't until I actually got my Vision Pro, and I mean, and used like Juno, for example. I was able to see like, because I was kind of curious how much better it would be essentially having a web view in an app and then overlaying native controls, and it turns out that it is like significantly better. and I was like, it's only a matter of time before someone does this for Netflix, because that was the other big one that was announced wouldn't have any app at all. And then, yeah, one weekend I was just like, no one's done this yet. Like, it's been like, I think it was like maybe 2 weeks after the release, and I was like, I'm just going to do it. Like, why not? Yeah.
And Juno being an inspiration, I know Christian's also been kind of blogging about his journey in creating this and some of the approaches he's taken. Has that been informative in helping you get SuperCut out the door with kind of learning from his journey with Juno?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he had a really interesting blog post on sort of getting the like 180-degree and 360-degree videos working, and a lot of that stuff sort of applies in terms of like building an environment, bringing it outside of a window. And he has some really interesting thoughts in that, and approaches to like getting around certain limitations with like video rendering on hardware and in a website.
Yeah, when I started using Juno, it was like, this is really impressive, transforming a website into this. Like it works. This approach, yeah,
definitely. And the player like feels very native. Like it feels great.
Yeah, and Juno's doing something I just noticed the other day. Juno's window size seems bigger than any other visionOS app I've ever used. Like you can get that thing huge. I don't know if there's like, is there like as a developer, do you get to like restrict window size, and like is there a way to turn that off entirely pretty much?
Yeah, we can set a maximum and minimum size, but I don't actually know what the maximum is before it sort of just like gets limited by the system.
Yeah.
I think that mine's set to a maximum of like over 3,000 points or something, which is like pretty huge.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to know. Maybe it's just like doesn't have a maximum for Juno.
Right. Yeah, because most apps they'll like do their bounce back thing when it's like, oh, you're at maximum size, and snaps back to the maximum whatever allowed size. But Juno seems to like, I have to like make sure I don't make it too big. Sometimes it can get overwhelming.
Yeah, I don't know why Apple actually does that for a lot of their native apps. It's sort of just like limited for no reason, especially like videos in Safari and like the player on Apple TV. Like, why is it limited? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like Apple doesn't want it too big, you know. So what were some of your goals with SuperCut? I noticed, like, importantly, you enable features like Dolby Atmos and HDR playback, which you don't get via Safari. So that's kind of a huge thing that you were able to figure out. But what were some of your other goals with this app?
Yeah, so like my minimum viable product I built the first version in like a weekend. I just wanted something that would. My main issue with playing in Safari was the fact that the aspect ratio didn't fit to the videos. So like that was like my first thing. I was like, I have to get this working, have some native playback controls, and a glass background would be nice. And that was basically the first version. And I think I actually like made a really simple version, posted about it on Twitter, and like submitted a test flight and tried to submit it to the App Store as well. And like we can start to get into the whole like review process with the App Store. But I was in review for almost 2 weeks, and throughout that time I was able to just like continuously keep improving the app. So it was actually really annoying, but it ended up working out well for me. So I was able to enable Dolby Atmos, and I'm pretty sure 4K came with visionOS 1.1, just it was like a limitation with the DRM. And that sort of just started working in Safari and SuperCut in 1.1. And HDR, I'm pretty sure, works in Safari.
Okay.
Although I'm going to do some investigation into HDR in visionOS in general, because it seems constrained compared to like the system player. It's definitely something that some people have mentioned. It doesn't look HDR, but I've noticed this in basically every app that claims to. It might be playing HDR, but it seems like the system is actually limiting it.
And that the TV app itself has the best looking stuff right now.
It seems like it, yes. I might even just be imagining it, but it seems like potentially even Disney Plus is like not as HDR-y as not not as high dynamic range as the TV app. Yeah, I might just be imagining that.
Yeah, and I wonder too if it's part of whatever file they're feeding us. I noticed that Disney Plus, while the download size is quite large, Apple TV Plus, if you have the full file size downloads on, they're bigger than Disney Plus. So I wonder how much of that is in the provider as well.
Yeah, yeah. It would be interesting. I think that Apple generally has a pretty good bitrate for their like 4K streams. Netflix's isn't great. It's fine. It's like definitely 4K, but it's like generally lower than I think other streaming services.
Yeah. Yeah, our Netflix account is through T-Mobile in the States, and they recently they put us down a tier, so I think we're just getting the 1080p streams at this point.
Yeah,
So that kind of sucks. Netflix is probably my least used of all the services. It's great to have on visionOS because at times I do want to watch like a stand-up special or something.
yeah,
But it's definitely if I used it a lot more, I would definitely pay for the 4K version.
yeah. The prices just keep increasing though, so
They really do. It is wild. Like it's like
yeah,
23. I don't know. It's yeah.
yeah.
They obviously want you to pay for the ad tier or whatnot, but
Streaming's in definitely an interesting place right now, but I mean, people still, I don't know if something's going to change, but people still do pay for it.
yeah, it's getting
Yeah,
so expensive. I upgraded our Mac subscription to the 4K version because I was like, I'm gonna do a Game of Thrones rewatch. I haven't seen this in 4K yet, so that's
yeah,
been really amazing to see that in Vision Pro.
yeah. Kind of like the same. Our Netflix subscription is basically just like 1080p one, or even sometimes we even just like cancel it until like
Something comes
like
out, yeah.
something comes out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a thing as they get more expensive of hopping between things and binging shows that you missed and all that.
it was the one like good service that had everything, but now there's a million services, and it's just yeah.
So, can you share a bit about your journey in bringing SuperCut to the App Store? So, I heard about your app from Devin Dundee over at Magic Rays of Light. He mentioned this Netflix app he was on the test flight of, and I had not heard of this. I was like, ooh. And then I went to check it out, and the test flight was pulled at that point, and you had that post about not looking like the app was going to come out. And what was this journey like? What did you have to change from kind of your original vision of the app to make Apple happy?
Yeah, it wasn't looking good at that point. So, as I said, I probably built the first version over like a weekend, a few days, and submitted it to the App Store. And it pretty quickly went to, so there's like a few stages to submitting an app, being like waiting for review, in
Yeah.
review, and then it or approved. It went to in review and stayed there for probably about 2 weeks until I was able to, like, after many emails, like messages in App Store Connect, like trying to get into contact with them, I was able to finally get them to actually call me, and they were able to check on the status, and probably a few hours after that it was rejected. And not just that, they went to the effort of also pulling the test flight. And after that happened, I was sort of like, it's not looking good. Yeah. Um,
So you had a phone conversation, and that conversation was basically, we'll look into the status and let you know.
Pretty much. I asked them like, there's other apps on the store that do a similar thing with bringing in a web view and then overlaying native controls over it. So my app's basically just like a web browser in that aspect. And like I asked them, is there anything wrong with that? And they said like, not necessarily, but like you might still need like permission from, if you're linking to specific websites, like you might still need permission. They were basically very vague about it. They don't give you much information, and they still rejected it anyways. And they said they would check into the status. It's it's just very random, like with app review. Sometimes you might get an approval in like literally like half an hour. Sometimes it might take like, in my case, it like was in review for 2 weeks.
And to get it on the store, did you have to change, like, was adding Amazon Prime and having it be multiple sites, was that an important thing for them to approve it to be less Netflix only?
Yes, so when it was rejected, I sort of had to rethink what the app would be. And then that's when I had the idea to sort of turn it into, instead of SuperCut for Netflix, I was like, well, instead of being constrained to Netflix, I'll turn it into like a general streaming hub that works with any website. And I didn't really want to do just Netflix if I was going to do something like that. So the next best option was Amazon Prime Video. And then I built a pretty bare bones Prime Video experience, submitted it, and I was left in review for another really long time. Again, I sent a few emails, didn't hear anything back, and it wasn't until I sent a message in App Store Connect to the person I talked to on the phone that it suddenly got approved. And yeah, something interesting that I think was important getting it approved was not actually just what was in the app, but just around the metadata, like actually removing like for Netflix and removing Netflix from the description and the tags and everything definitely helped, I think. But you can't say for sure with app review. It's sort of like, yeah, they don't really tell you.
Yeah, it seems like Apple's doesn't want to get Netflix's bad side or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's potentially that, like, no one really knows. It's also very curious that it was in review for such a long time. It's like, what were they actually looking at? Did they get into contact with Netflix? Like, I'm not really sure what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, I don't even know. Does Juno say Juno for YouTube, or is it's just called Juno, right?
It's Juno for YouTube.
Is it? Okay.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. They don't care about Google because I guess they have a different relationship with them.
Potentially,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's fascinating. Did you have to remove any? You should still have Dolby Atmos and all that good stuff in there. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing had to be taken out, right?
The only difference between like SuperCut for Netflix and SuperCut Streaming Hub was like the onboarding. You could pick a custom website or you could pick Netflix or Prime Video. Other than that, once you selected Netflix, it was pretty much exactly the same app.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, because I'd never experienced the pre rejection version.
Yeah.
And as far as optimizations for Netflix itself, what kind of things have you managed to do?
Yeah, so as I said before, my initial goal was just like the playback controls and fitting to the aspect ratio. So I did a lot of just playing around with the like Netflix like website, seeing what APIs they expose and how I could take advantage of them to make SuperCut work. And then I also just a lot of CSS optimizations. So there's the glass background, there's like the trailer fades out with a gradient mask. It's just like small optimizations like that like add up to just a generally significantly better experience. I mean, there's also like the native tab bar, the native selector.
Nice, yeah. And yeah, it functions as you'd want, and there's a little sidebar there to let you switch between TVs and movies. And I'm not familiar with the Netflix website. How is that kind of part of the regular website, that sidebar with the search and all that?
Yeah, so I basically just hide the like top menu bar that has links to the homepage, TVs, movies, and search, and then just expose it as like native elements. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And then I like how like the little profile icon is just kind of like there in the corner. It feels very visionOS-y how it's displayed there.
Yeah. The ornaments are really easy to add in SwiftUI. It's like very easy to add something that's very at home on visionOS. So that was like definitely one of my goals. I wanted to build that in. Yeah.
How does the streaming world look like in Australia? Because I know content differs region to region. I'm not sure. Is Max even available in Australia kind of thing?
Max isn't. We have a few other streaming services. I mean, I know there's Stan. We have like, I don't know if I think this is like everywhere. There's Paramount Plus,
yes,
Disney, Netflix. They're probably the main ones, but it's still very fractured now, you know.
With Disney, you mentioned there's no 3D section, but the movie will play in 3D. Does the listing from the movie have like 3D indicated anywhere on it, or do you just have to be in the know?
It doesn't. It just says like 4K Atmos vision if it is, and 3D is just, it just doesn't say it.
It doesn't say it at all. Wow. Okay.
No, it doesn't until you actually play the movie. Yeah.
That's wild. So as they add new movies, you kind of have to be on like a wiki of like, here's the list of movies to check out. Yeah. Oh wow. You know, Disney, they have those IMAX enhanced versions. I would die because most of those are also in 3D. I would love if they would IMAX 3D enhanced, add that to the library as well.
I haven't actually watched any of them, but I don't know if they're maybe just not available here.
As far as the IMAX, or
in I don't know if like the IMAX enhanced like movies are available.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
I haven't come across any, so maybe they are, and I just don't know because it doesn't tell me.
It's like a separate version within the same listing kind of thing.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like you can play back normally, or there's the iMac Enhanced, which a lot of those are also in 3D, so it's like, I'll do the 3D version instead. I wish I could do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I understand it. Yeah, Max is an interesting one because that's like another like first-class visionOS app, and that app isn't even available for you. And you're not using VPNs or anything to like access stuff elsewhere, right?
Yeah. No, I think most of the streaming services actually like block VPNs at this point, which is interesting. Something I noticed when like testing Prime, because it's very different in like certain regions, which was something I unfortunately learnt about after releasing the app on the App Store.
Yeah, Prime is a bit of they're annoying. I'll just be frank. Prime is kind of the worst. Like, we had our account set to Ireland for some reason because we have a relative that lives in Ireland. I think she might have used our account as like the first instance of streaming any video, and then our account got locked to Irish content. It's like, oh. So we had to contact Amazon to unlock it to use it in the United States again. It's like,
yeah. Sometimes these streaming services just make things more complicated than they should be. Sometimes it's like in the era of just like having like DVDs and Blu-rays, like sometimes it's nice to be able to just like, you know, you have your content, you bought it. Yeah. Not having anything locked to a certain region or account or, yeah.
Yeah, in high school, I had the largest DVD collection ever. Like, I was surrounded by DVDs, and it was different era.
That's the advantage to something like Plex.
Yeah, very much so. And I'm going back to like trying to seek out my own content and ripping DVDs and stuff, because like a lot of the '90s TV shows, like Seinfeld, it's like I can't find a 4x3 copy of this. I bought them in iTunes, but they're all 16:9, and I actually care about that now, and so it's annoying when
That's definitely something that I'm thinking about and am sort of starting to play around with is Plex Support. It's probably my other most used. It's not really a streaming service particularly, but it's probably my other most used content like app. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and so, Plex has some streaming stuff that they're starting to do with the free TV with ads thing, but most people, it's for the server they've set up.
Yeah, exactly. And there are already Plex apps for Vision Pro, some of which are pretty good. I think I might be forgetting the name of it.
And has Plex announced if they have any plans for their first-party app to make it to visionOS?
I think that they haven't. I'm not sure actually if they have their iPad app.
Okay.
But I don't think that they have plans to.
Yeah, doing Plex 2, I would love to, if you do that journey, I'd love to know later on, like side-by-side 3D content would be another avenue you could then explore, because I think you could put stuff in your Plex library that's in 3D, the side-by-side, rips you do from a 3D Blu-ray. That'd be kind of interesting to experiment with what that's like to build out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that sort of the idea of SuperCut is it would be nice to just have like one place that you have all of your media and entertainment content. And I think Plex would definitely unlock a big part of that.
For sure. Yeah. So as far as streaming providers in Australia, what's your go-to? Like, what do you spend the most time in these days?
Probably Disney Plus and Netflix, I'd say. I don't use Prime Video super often. I sort of just wanted to add it to SuperCut because it was like the next thing sort of just came to my mind and had a website that's streamed in like decent quality and would be a pretty good experience in SuperCut. But yeah, I'd say Disney Plus and Netflix,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah, and as you said, Prime does have their own iPad app, but I've done like Paramount Plus. I've streamed some stuff in there. I watched Men and Amazon and Paramount Plus the other night, and that was the first time I actually watched a movie through an iPad app, and it was getting annoying. You constantly see the rotate iPad button, and you constantly see the close window. That stuff never goes away. Like I would love an
Yeah.
option to like hide that stuff after it's been idling for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I've also tried the Prime Video iPad app and it works. It's fine. It's like slightly low resolution and it doesn't fit to the aspect ratio. And I think it's because like it still constrains the video to play at like the maximum of like an iPad resolution. It's fine, but it definitely could be improved, and that's why I built it into SuperCut.
As far as the region variances, Prime's a weird one. I guess outside the United States, PrimeVideo.com is like where you go to watch all this stuff. But in the United States, within the app, it'll say, you can change your region or click this link to watch it at Amazon.com. Which once I click the link, app works great. The whole interface, perfect. Videos play back perfectly. But there is some weird regional difference. Like, yeah, I don't know how much you've explored, and testing that's got to be a pain in the butt because, like, you're not in the United States, you don't know what that's like.
It was.
Yeah,
Yeah, when I released the first version, I was not aware of the fact that like the US and the UK don't have they don't have like just a Prime Video website. It's built into Amazon, which is really weird and specific. But I had a lot of people be like, it's not working, and I had to just like submit a really quick like patch for that. And luckily, the review times for my updates have been actually quite fast. It was just the initial review process that was kind of painful.
yeah.
And I had just submitted another update last night that made it work more seamlessly when switching between regions. I was actually able to just use a VPN for actually browsing is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when you go to play content that it like blocks you if you're using a VPN.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's smart that they're doing that because they know the game people are doing with VPN.
Yeah. I'm grateful that they at least didn't block it for browsing. Otherwise, it would have been
Yes.
almost impossible for me to like optimize it for other regions.
Yeah, and in America, it's got to be your number one region since that's the only country the headset's available
Yeah.
in officially. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as far as optimizations for Amazon, what kind of stuff were you able to do there?
Yeah, so the main thing was just the aspect ratio fit for the player, and then also the native controls. I was able to bring over the same player controls that I had in Netflix, and then the glass background and tab bar and profile switcher were the other main things. I don't have the metadata and like current resolution and like audio quality showing like I do in Netflix just yet, but I'm working on it, and it should be in a future update.
Very cool. Yeah, it is nice, and yeah, Netflix will show you, hey, this video is available in this resolution kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then something I was curious about: would it be impossible to combine like multiple services into a single UI, like on that sidebar, have like Netflix header, then some buttons below it for home, movies, TV for the Netflix, and then below that Prime, and versus going through the profile picker to switch out services.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to improve the UI. I mean, the thing is with like switching between Prime and the custom websites, that was sort of just like a last minute addition to get it approved on the App Store and to sort of turn it into like a streaming hub, I guess. It's still mainly focused on Netflix, but now that I am supporting like other websites and Prime, there's definitely opportunities. And I mean, as you said, I think it would be a good idea to combine them into one if you have multiple services. So it's something that I'm thinking about, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. And with the custom implementation, one tweak I would love in the future is saving a custom URL. Because right now, every time you click the custom, it'll make you re-enter it. So for me, Paramount Plus is the one. That'd be great if you just add that natively. But if you do have the customs, add the ability to save different customs that you want, and maybe even try to, grab the favicon from that URL if it's available. That'd be kind of neat as well.
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of ideas for the custom implementation. I've also had a few people ask for being able to save multiple custom websites, and that's definitely something that will be coming. And then I also have some ideas to just improve custom websites in general. Like, technically I can get the video element and then overlay like native controls on top of it for play, pause, and skip through and stuff like that. Curiously, that didn't work with Netflix. I had to use their like APIs, but it's basically what I'm doing with Prime Video, and I think that I could make that into a more general implementation that works with basically any website that has a video. Say being able to just like get the video from any website and get its aspect ratio and fit the window to that size would be a great improvement. So there's definitely like things coming for the custom implementation. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Because it's nice having it there because everyone's got like their niche streaming service that they want to have in there, and yeah. So
the initial rejection with like Netflix was kind of like a blessing in disguise because it meant that I was able to like then make it a more generic thing that works with any website now. So sort of just like all in one. It kind of worked out.
Yeah, for sure. Because you probably wouldn't build out a special Paramount Plus app in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's since they have their iPad app, and yeah, I'm very curious with visionOS too. If the iPad app support will be exactly the same. Like, I think it took Apple like a decade for the iPhone apps running on iPad to be improved in any way. Like, they just left it alone as.
I mean, yeah, they're still not really great, but it would be nice if you could say like, I don't know how possible it is for them to do something like this, but actually get certain elements. And I mean, the thing is, like, technically an iPad app or any iOS app at this point can run in a window of any size. And you notice this if you say go into like split view or
Stage Manager,
or like slider, or Stage Manager. So I don't actually know why they've constrained it to just like an iPad screen size, but it would be nice to say have like an iPad app where you can resize it to any size you want.
Yeah, make it like an iPhone size class, even like a little.
Yeah, exactly.
App. And iPad app support picture-in-picture video. How cool it would be if you could just pop out a video and manipulate that as an element.
Yeah. It's like technically any app that does support picture-in-picture should be able to like fit the video to the aspect ratio of the window.
Yes.
And yeah,
that'd be super neat. So something I want in every video streaming, we mentioned this before, is to have a movie theater environment, whether it be like Disney Plus's El Capitan Theater, which is like a real theater, or Apple's approach, which is more like feels like a sound testing room where you're hearing speakers for stuff like that. And one of the things I like about the environments is it feels like you can push the screen much further back and feel like you're in a bigger space than you are with just blowing up your window big and pushing it as far back as you can, because there's limitations as far as how far Apple let you actually push things back. So that's one of the reasons I like environments, because you get to feel like you're in a bigger space with a bigger screen. What complications have you experienced trying to build out environments?
Yeah, you definitely get a massive sense of scale with the environments. And the so I actually have a version of like the cinema environment similar to Apple's working for SuperCut. The main limitation right now is the fact that it's almost impossible, although maybe not, but it's going to be very hard to get dynamic lighting working with content from Amazon and Prime Video because of the DRM limitations. With YouTube, to say sample frames from the player and use it to show dynamic lighting on the like top and bottom surface, in a way that I'm not able to with Netflix and Prime Video. It is still possible to have like a cinema environment, and building something like say the Disney Plus theater would be really cool. I don't know if I'm like talented enough as a 3D
It's easier to have like Apple's monolithic space.
3D artist. Yeah, but it would be really cool to have something like that. And I plan to have like different kinds of environments. Like I'm still playing around with it, and there's a lot of improvements I want to make. But I mean, I do have a like sample that I built that's on my Twitter. You can see with like the Big Buck Bunny video, and it has the dynamic lighting and everything working pretty well. But yeah, the main limitation right now has just been I can't sample frames from Netflix or Prime Video.
How does it feel without the dynamic lighting? Is it a big difference as far as immersion and feeling like you're in a place like Apple does it?
It still is like probably better than watching in a window. It's still pretty nice, but it doesn't feel as good as the like Apple TV one. One interesting thing that I noticed, this is kind of not necessarily in environments, but if you're in a completely dark room and you have a window from the Apple TV player, it actually like has a glow around it. I don't know if that's something that you noticed.
I have, yeah.
I've been trying to work out how I could do something like that in SuperCut, but again, it's like kind of difficult with the DRM limitations. That's probably been my biggest limitation in building SuperCut.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. In Plex, you'd have an unlocked environment probably because that DRM is not there with your own content.
Exactly. With Plex, all of that would be possible. So that's why I'm kind of planning to potentially roll out Plex support with environments, because, I mean, it's still... I have more of a, I don't know, reason, I guess, that it doesn't work in like Netflix and Prime Video, if that makes sense. And then it still will work in Plex if you want to do that. But I have also been exploring other workarounds. Obviously, I don't want to using any illegal sources or anything to get anything. I think it would be cool if you could say it's kind of like very high friction, but it would be nice if you could say like have a macOS helper app, because you can extract frames from say like Chrome if you have hardware acceleration turned off. So it would be nice to have like a macOS helper app that sends frames to your Vision Pro for dynamic lighting. But then again, it also feels like very high effort just for like colored lights. Yeah.
And it'd be interesting when the Plex gets added to have the option, turn on environments in beta for Netflix, have the disclosure, no dynamic lighting kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be nice, even without that. And an improvement from like Moonplayer, where you're just in a black void. It's you're surrounded by black. Like I'd rather Moonplayer have like, Apple's environment even without the lighting. Because it seems like I'd rather have that versus like just surrounded by blackness,
I don't want it to be just nothing. One thing I do appreciate though I think that Moonplayer will get there. One thing I've noticed with them is they sort of just seem to be like shipping on like a crazy basis. Like they're just adding stuff all the time, even if it's not the most polished stuff. And honestly, I respect it, but I want to sort of make sure that it's a bit more polished before I put those updates out there.
Yeah, their release notes are infuriating. It's like improve the user experience every 2 days. Like, what did you do?
Yeah. They're adding a lot though. I think they added like 360 videos with YouTube, which I'm kind of curious how they got that working, but I'm like 90% sure they're downloading it to the device first, and then because you're not able to say wrap a web view around, so like with Reality Kit, you basically can't get any view and then wrap it onto like a shape as a texture, but you can use a video as a texture. So I'm pretty confident that they're like somehow downloading the video in the background and then doing it like that.
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, something with visionOS 2 I hope they tweak is it feels like when I enter just a regular environment, like I'm going to Mount Hood or whatnot, that my windows can only be X distance far from me. And if I turn off the environment, it feels like I can push it a little bit further away. I don't know if that's just a pseudo. Have you noticed that? Like, do the windows feel a little closer to you when you're in an environment?
It definitely like annoys me that the same environments in the Apple TV app are like way further away and you can't change your position.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
I mean the actual like windows. Like, so if I like turn on environment in like an app, it feels like the windows are slightly closer to me than the max distance without the environment loaded.
Oh yeah.
Does that ring true to you, or is that just like my brain playing tricks?
Yeah, no. I think you're right, but I'm sort of like the opposite in that I feel like it's too far away in the like Apple TV environment, and I kind of like it closer with the window, but I also like the reflections like on the water with the like Mount Hood environment.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the Apple TV Theater, I always do the middle row because the front row feels way too close. Like it feels like I am right in the front row of the movie theater, which I don't like. The back is just like too small.
Though.
Yeah.
The front balcony is probably like my go-to.
Okay, yeah. And I'll change between balcony and floor depending on the chair I'm in or whatnot, because my head might be angled differently.
Yeah. Although the annoying thing is like you can't lie down and use the cinema environment. So sometimes if I'm like watching a movie in bed, I'll have to like just put it into a window and put it like on my roof or something.
Yeah. No, that is a bit annoying. Like you can't even recenter it that way. One trick I did learn is if you start scrolling the environment wheel, whatever way you're looking is where the environment will center. So like on the moon, if you pivot, on the moon, if you pivot all the way around and they're looking, you can like change it so you're like looking at planet Earth versus having Earth be behind you, kind of thing, which is fun.
I didn't know that.
So it's kind of fun every now and then to just like, trick the environment so you can look at a part of the environment you don't normally see.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Spatial Personas kind of dropped on us out of nowhere as a server-side update to 1.1. I'm curious if you've looked into adding SharePlay support to SuperCut to enable us to watch Netflix together over a Spatial Persona call. What's the DRM situation look like with that?
I mean, it's definitely something that I've thought about, and it's like on my list of potential features. I haven't actually started implementing anything, but I think that it is possible as long as both users have a subscription to the service that's being used. I wouldn't be able to do anything that's like actually mirroring the content, but if both users say have a Netflix subscription and want to watch the same thing, I think it's definitely doable and would be really cool to enable.
Because you'd be sending over like, here's the URL of the video that person just clicked in the timestamp. Like, are you able to? Do you have timestamp information to be able to send over AirPlay or a SharePlay session? You think?
Yeah. So I'm thinking that like a person can start a movie on a FaceTime call, and it should just automatically show that in SharePlay. The other user with the app can click it, and it should automatically link to that movie, and then just sync up the times for both users, because that's something I can control. Yeah, and then it's essentially just like play, pause, and then the timestamps of both users.
Yeah.
So
that'd be super cool. Because I've done some testing, and it is fun just sitting next to your buddy watching stuff.
Yeah.
and then you'd have to probably enable it so it like puts the people next to each other like they're sitting. Like that's where the environment would probably come in handy, where the environment would tell the system, hey, they're right next to each other, kind of thing.
I'm actually not sure, like, what I would have to do on the developer side to enable, like, spatial personas, or if that just sort of works. Something that I have to look into. Although I guess it might be hard because I don't really know anyone else, like, in Australia that has a Vision Pro, and I obviously only have one.
Right.
So, yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's something I'm gonna
happy
look
to
into,
test with you if you'd like.
We'll let you know.
Although the hours are a bit, it was 6 a.m. when we started recording, and it's like nighttime for you, so it's
yeah,
different side of the world. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for Jerry Seinfeld's Unfrosted hitting Netflix in May. I thought it'd be just fun to just. Is there anything you're looking forward to on either Prime or Netflix that came out recently or coming up?
let me think. There's nothing specific I'm looking forward to. I just watched Three Body Problem on Netflix, which was pretty fun, and kind of relevant with the like headset things that they have. Yeah, Vision Pro in a alternate universe.
Yeah, I've not seen a trailer of that. I have no idea what it's about, except for I know the Game of Thrones creators were involved, and yeah. At some point,
It was quite good, although the ending was interesting. I'm like pretty sure it's based on a book, and I'm not sure how the book goes, but yeah, the ending was interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check it out for sure. So anything we didn't cover that you'd like to before we wrap it up?
I think we covered most things pretty good. Like summary of everything, I think. Yeah.
Excellent. And where can people follow you online and learn more about SuperCut?
I'm on Twitter at Priva28_, and like Priva28 on most other things. Mostly Twitter, like most of the time. I'm also on Reddit, where I have posted the app on the Vision Pro subreddits. And then you can also send an email to like support@supercut.vision if you have any issues with the app. Other than that, yeah, that's pretty much all.
Very cool. Well, thank you for your time chatting about SuperCut. It's been wonderful learning more about this, and excited to see where it goes. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's my discussion with Christian. My thanks to Christian for his time recording, and my thanks to you for your time and attention tuning in. Make sure to check out SuperCut in the visionOS App Store. As a reminder, you can support this podcast over at visionpros.fm/Patreon, and by subscribing to either Apple Podcasts or Patreon, you'll get early access to both Vision Pros and iPad Pros. And as another quick reminder, if you could open up the Apple Podcasts app and write a quick review, that'd be very much appreciated. With that, I'll talk to everyone again real soon.